The hand never landed. That was what every person in the dining room of the Claridge Grand Hotel remembered first, not the raised arm, not the shouting, not the particular sharp crack that a slap across the face makes in a room with high ceilings and crystal chandeliers. What they remembered was the hand that did not land. The wrist caught mid-arc. The 4 inches of distance between Victoria Ashworth's palm and a waitress's face that should have closed and did not. Victoria Ashworth had been making hands land on the faces of restaurant staff for the better part of 3 years. Not every week, she was not consistent in her cruelty, which somehow made it worse, because inconsistency meant that the staff of the Claridge Grand's fine dining room could not predict it and could not prepare for it and could not develop the particular flat emotional armor that comes from regularity. She arrived perhaps once a month, sometimes twice, always with the same group of associates who had learned to watch her escalations the way people watch weather, with the hopeful attention of those who believe they can get out of the way in time and the dawning recognition each time that they cannot. The Claridge Grand's management had managed the situation the way management manages situations that involve guests whose family name appears on 2 floors of the hotel, with the careful application of apologies and transfers and the quiet relocation of the most vulnerable staff members to other stations when intelligence suggested Victoria was in the building. It was not a solution. It was the appearance of one. On the night that changed everything, Victoria Ashworth was celebrating something. She did not specify what. She was in a good mood, which at the Claridge Grand had come to mean a different kind of dangerous, not the cold calculated cruelty of her bad nights, but the expansive entitled carelessness of someone who is happy and has never learned to be happy without making it someone else's problem. The waitress assigned to her table was named on the rota simply as Amara. She had been at the Claridge Grand for 6 weeks. She had not previously been assigned to Victoria Ashworth's table. She had, in 6 weeks, been assessed by the head server Thomas as the most technically precise member of staff he had seen in 11 years at the restaurant. Her timing was exact. Her memory was photographic, and she moved through a full dining room with the specific unhurried efficiency of someone who had done this at a level considerably above the Claridge Grand, though Thomas had not yet determined where. He had also noted, in the margin of his staff assessment, that she had never once been rattled by anything. He was about to find out if that was true. Victoria Ashworth arrived at 8:15 with 4 guests and a mood that was, for the first 40 minutes, as close to pleasant as the dining room staff had seen from her. She was charming to the sommelier. She remembered the head server's name and used it. Amara served the first 2 courses without incident. She moved precisely, she anticipated correctly, she spoke only when spoken to, and when spoken to she answered clearly and without the visible tension that Victoria had learned to identify and target in staff. Victoria looked at her twice, once when she arrived at the table and once after the second course, with the particular assessing look of someone cataloging the available reaction material and reaching a provisional conclusion. The conclusion appeared to be neutral, which was as good as it got with Victoria Ashworth. The third course was where it shifted. Amara was serving Victoria's guest when Victoria changed her mind about what she wanted. Not the food. The placement. She wanted her water glass moved 2 inches to the right, and she communicated this by reaching across and doing it herself at the exact moment Amara was setting down the plate, which caused the plate to connect with the glass and the glass to tip and a very small amount of water to land on the white tablecloth. Not on Victoria. On the tablecloth. A 1/4-inch puddle of water on the most expensive linen in West London. Victoria looked at it. She looked at Amara. She said nothing for 3 seconds, the 3 seconds that dining room staff at the Claridge Grand had learned to count and to dread. Then she raised her hand. Amara caught it. Not dramatically. Not with a martial arts movement or anything resembling what the shocked diners later described as the most impressive physical intervention they had ever seen in a restaurant. She simply turned slightly and raised her right hand and closed it around Victoria Ashworth's wrist at the exact moment the slap was descending, and she held it there. Steady. Complete. Victoria's palm 4 inches from Amara's face. The dining room went silent the way the sea goes flat before a storm. Suddenly, completely, and with a quality of suspension that suggested the silence itself was only the beginning of something. Victoria said, "Let go of me." Amara did not let go. She was looking at Victoria with an expression that was not anger and was not fear and was not the wide-eyed shock of someone who had surprised themselves. It was the expression of someone who had made a decision and was at peace with having made it. She said, "No." One word. No stage performance. No raised voice. Just the specific complete word of someone who has reached the end of something. Victoria said, "Do you know who I am?" Amara said, "Yes." She released the wrist. She stepped back one step. She straightened her uniform jacket. She looked at Thomas and said, quietly and with complete composure, "I'll need a moment, please." Thomas gave her a moment. Thomas Reeve had been head server at the Claridge Grand for 11 years and had known, in the 6 weeks Amara had been at the Claridge Grand, that she was not what her application said she was. Not because she had lied, everything on the application was accurate. But because the gap between what the application described and what he was observing was the specific gap between someone who had done this work and someone who had mastered it at a level that the Claridge Grand was not where you went to master. He had not asked. The people with things they were not currently disclosing would disclose them when they were ready, and the work in the meantime was genuine. After the wrist incident, Thomas went to the staff room and knocked on the door. Amara opened it. He said, "I think it's time you told me." She said, "Yes. I think it is." Her full name was Amara Osebonsu. The hidden part, the part that the reservation system of the Claridge Grand did not have, the part that would have changed every calculation the hotel's management had made about how to handle the Victoria Ashworth situation, was the second part of her professional life that she had been conducting in parallel to the 6 weeks of service shifts. Amara was 32 years old. She was the founder and chief executive of the Meridian Hospitality Group, which owned 11 restaurants across 3 cities, 2 of which held Michelin stars, and which had been named in the previous year's industry review as the most significant new hospitality group in Europe in a decade. She had started in hospitality at 19, working stations exactly like the ones she was working at the Claridge Grand, and had built her group from a single 40-seat restaurant in East London across a decade of specific deliberate unglamorous work. She was at the Claridge Grand because the Claridge Grand was a potential acquisition target. She had taken the service position because she believed that the best way to understand an operation was to work inside it, and because she was not willing to make an acquisition decision on the basis of dining as a guest. She had also taken it because she had heard about the Victoria Ashworth situation from 3 separate sources in the industry and had wanted to see it herself. Not to intervene. She had planned to observe. Victoria had made the plan irrelevant. Amara sat across from Gerald Holt in his office and told him everything, not theatrically, but with the specific clear organization of someone who understood that the most useful thing you can do with complex information is make it easy to follow. She told him her name. She told him about Meridian. She told him about the acquisition interest. She told him about the 6 weeks of service shifts and what she had observed. She told him about the wrist. Gerald Holt was quiet for a long time after she finished. Then he said, "Why are you telling me this tonight? You could have left." Amara said, "The staff who work for you have been managing a situation that your management structure should have resolved 3 years ago. I watched it for 6 weeks. I'm telling you tonight because it's time it was resolved, and because I have a specific interest in what this property becomes and I would prefer it to become something I can be proud of rather than something I have to fix." Gerald said, "You're interested in acquiring us?" Amara said, "Potentially. That depends on a number of things." Gerald said, "Including how we handle this." Amara said, "Including how you handle this." He picked up his phone. Victoria Ashworth did not return to the Claridge Grand. The formal communication from the hotel's management was courteous and precise and irrevocable. It noted that the hotel reserved the right to refuse service and that this right was being exercised. It did not elaborate. It did not need to. The Ashworth family's response was several phone calls and one letter that referenced their historical relationship with the hotel going back to 1987. Gerald Holt read the letter carefully, acknowledged it formally, and did not change his position. This was, his deputy noted afterward, the first time in 9 years she had seen him hold a position under that particular kind of pressure. He held it because Amara Osebonsu was watching and because she had said that how they handled this was one of the things that would determine what she thought of the property. But he also held it because she had been right. It should have been resolved 3 years ago. The dining room continued to run. It ran better. The things that had always made it good, the craft, the precision, the specific satisfaction of a room operating exactly as it should, were still there. Amara Osebonsu's name was not on any door. It was not on the menu. It was not, for some months, publicly known in connection with the Claridge Grand at all. But the dining room staff knew. Thomas had told them the same week the acquisition completed. He told them because he thought they deserved to know who had caught the wrist.